Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about two brand new studio albums from the Acacia Strain, entitled Step Into the Light and Failure Will Follow. But before we do that, just a quick reminder, the Metal Meltdown has its own official Discord server. As of this recording, it has been live for 2 days? 48 hours-ish? And it's already crazy and nuts and filled with stupid nonsense. Just how I like it. Hell yeah. It's been wonderful. It's been a blast. So join the party. If you have not already, click the link in the description or go to the homepage of this channel where you'll find all the social media links and crap and stuff like that. Cool? Alright. See you there. Alright, now that we got that out of the way, let's officially start talking about these two brand new studio albums from the Acacia Strain. Why two? Well, because one simply wasn't good enough this time around. The Acacia Strain have always shown a willingness to go above and beyond the Call of Duty, to go into weirder, more ambitious territory, to play around with release formats and normal album release schedules, and as such, I've always really appreciated the Acacia Strain. I haven't loved everything they've done, but I've approached everything that they have done with an open mind and an open heart. And for the record, I have enjoyed a very good chunk of their discography. Their early records kind of meh for me personally, but Coma Witch is great, Grave Bloom is great, really liked It Comes in Waves. Slow Decay I appreciated. I like the idea of releasing like the album in like these separate little chunks, and then kind of bringing it all together at the very end in this kind of compilation format. With these two studio albums in particular, the goal is to explore different aspects and sides of the Acacia Strain's musical identity, with Step Into the Light focusing on the hardcore, the deathcore, the extreme metal side of their sound, whereas Failure Will Follow roots itself in atmospheric doom and sludge metal. While this is not intended to be a double album in the traditional sense, they definitely do work well as a package, despite their differences musically. It kind of reminds me of that Gatecreeper EP from a couple years back, An Unexpected Reality, in that sense. Like, the two sides just kind of seamlessly work together despite their differences. That said, because they are officially speaking individual albums, today we are going to talk about each album individually, give each an individual score, and then maybe at the end I'll find out how I feel about this entire project as a whole and give an overall score. Let's start with Step Into the Light, because I feel like that's what the typical Acacia Strain fan is going to lean towards preferring. This album is defined by simplistic, meaty, muscular, hardcore extremity and power and grit. It is a very abrasive and in-your-face record, borrowing elements from across the hardcore and extreme metal spectrums. The song Calf's Blood, for instance, starts off with these grindcore-esque flurries before then transitioning into some really beefy, dark, kind of late 90s metallic hardcore, then introducing some distorted vocals and some weird noisy passages, ending the whole thing on a somewhat eerie, bittersweet climax. Then there's Chain, which ups the sonic brutality and introduces some cool tempo changes and some much darker vibes. You have these slow, brooding deathcore chugs that transition into like these crippling grooves and these full-on bursts of like brutal death metal. A lot of squealing guitars too, and some more distorted vocals. In a weird way, it feels like Full of Hell and Despised Icon kind of thrown into a blender, but with just a little teaspoon of like 90s metalcore. Fresh Bones follows a pretty similar blueprint, but it also throws in some more ominous backing vocals, some more atmospheric textures. They're quite subtle, but they are there, and they are very cool. It kind of reminds me of what the Acacia Strain were doing on It Comes in Waves, but with more of a death metal spine and skeleton to it. The closing track, None of Us Asked to Be Here, channels a kind of energy I'm used to seeing from a band like Xibalba. Like, it's a very slow, moody track, dangerously close to death doom at times, or maybe in this instance, deathcore doom. It ends the album on a surprisingly cathartic note, and also makes for a great transition into Failure Will Follow. There are definitely riffs and beats and moments here that could be described as generic if you really wanted to, but honestly, it's consistently an effective listen despite that. I'm consistently engaged with it. Everyone's doing a great job. Love the production. Love how immense and consuming it is. I love how hostile it is. I really like the bitter, cynical, blunt lyricism on display here as well. Overall, I'm feeling a solid 3.5 out of 5 on Step Into the Light. I feel like Failure Will Follow will end up being the more divisive of the two albums here that we're talking about today. But honestly, I prefer it simply because it is a more interesting and a more ambitious record overall from start to finish. There are only 3 songs here, but they're all absolutely massive, and they do a great job at completely consuming you in their unique types of darkness. Opening number Pillar of Salt, for instance, is an absolutely aggravating number with incredibly heavy, doomy passages and some really great vocal chemistry between Vincent Bennett of the Acacia Strain, obviously, and our special guest, Dylan Walker from Full of Hell. I unironically think this is a much better version of what Full of Hell were kind of trying to do with Primitive Man on their collaborative record earlier this year, to the point where I'm like, all right, maybe we need to stick these guys in the same room together more often. Just a thought. Feel free to do with that information whatever you wish. Speaking of Primitive Man, though, Ethan McCarthy of Primitive Man fame also pops up on Basin of Vows. A lot of static and slow-paced grooves interwoven between these very spacious and atmospheric moments. Another incredibly heavy number. I will say, though, of the 3 tracks that comprise this record, my favorite is Bogwalker, which absolutely lives up to its fucking name. I feel as if I am knee-deep in shitty, smelly, swampy, pissy water right now. Like, there is full-on Southern New Orleans sludge metal worship on display here, and I am loving it. Yeah, Failure Will Follow is definitely my favorite of the two. This one is a strong 4 out of 5. I think this one is great. This makes me want to hear the Acacia Strain go more into, like, doom and sludge metal and, like, atmospheric metal territory in the future. Like, I would love it if this were the direction that they took for, like, another studio album. That would be fucking awesome, in my opinion. Looking at these 2 records together as one connected piece, I guess I would give the entire project a very enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5. I love seeing these different sides of the Acacia Strain. Both these albums very well produced, very well performed, very honest, very gritty, very dark. Like I said, I feel like most Acacia Strain fans will lean towards preferring Step Into the Light, but I hope that you check out both records because they're both filled with a lot of really cool and interesting things. Once again, Step Into the Light, 3.5 out of 5. Failure Will Follow, 4 out of 5. The entire project as a whole, a very, very, very enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5. Definitely check these records out. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown immediately. Look, more goofy-ass videos here too. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.